A Minneapolis jury convicts former police officer Derek Chauvin of murdering George Floyd.
The Chinese and U.S. presidents meet virtually to address climate change.
And Chad's president has been killed on the battlefield. His son has been named interim president.
Hello and welcome to the first edition of the JMSC Weekly News Roundup. I'm Thomas Shum.
And I'm Deng Xue. Thanks for joining us. One of the biggest stories in the United States this week was the conviction for murder of the police officer who killed George Floyd, sparking the Black Lives Matter movement. A jury in Minneapolis found former police officer Derek Chauvin guilty on 3 different charges, including 2 counts of murder and 1 count of manslaughter. He was sent into Minnesota State Prison after the verdicts were read. Sentencing will come in 2 months. George Floyd's family and supporters welcomed the guilty verdict. The tent suite outside the courthouse turned into a celebration after the verdict was announced. 3 other police officers who were present when Floyd was killed will stand trial in August.
Leaders of the world's largest nations and biggest polluters have pledged to do more to fight climate change. Dozens of world leaders gathered virtually for a climate summit at the invitation of U.S. President Joe Biden. The meeting was the first between Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping since Biden took office. President Xi pledged to control coal-fired power plants more strictly in China's current 5-year plan and scale them down over the following 5 years. President Biden vowed to cut greenhouse gas emissions in half from 2005 levels by 2030. A week before the summit, U.S. climate envoy John Kerry traveled to Shanghai to meet with his Chinese counterpart. That was also the first high-level visit to China by an official from the Biden administration.
The nation of Chad's army has announced that President Idriss Déby has been killed on the front lines of battlefield in the country's north. The army says Déby was visiting soldiers fighting rebels and died from wounds suffered during a rebel attack. Déby was one of Africa's longest ruling leaders. In power for 3 decades, the government and parliament have been dissolved and the military council will rule Chad for the next 18 months. His son, Mahamat Kaka, was named interim president by the Transitional Council of Military Officers. The exact cause of President Déby's death is not yet clear.
A train accident in Egypt has killed 11 people and injured 98. The accident took place when 4 carriages derailed on Sunday afternoon. The train was heading to the Nile Delta city of Mansoura from Cairo. Egyptian National Railway says the cause of the accident is being investigated. It's the latest of several recent train accidents in the country. Egyptians took to social media to demand Egypt's transportation minister Kamel al-Wazir to resign. Al-Wazir rejected those demands and vowed to improve Egypt's aging rail network. In the past month, there have been 2 other train accidents, a collision and a derailing, that killed at least 20 and injured around 210 people combined.
In Myanmar's capital city, Yangon, a Japanese freelance journalist has been detained by the military junta. According to local media, Yuki Kizumi was taken into custody by soldiers and whisked away in a car. It was the 2nd time he'd been arrested this year. The Japanese embassy in Myanmar says Kizumi was being investigated for allegedly posting fake news about the political situation in the country. The Japanese government has called for his immediate release. Posts against the military junta, known as the Tatmadaw, are still happening across Myanmar. The Tatmadaw have targeted the media in an attempt to silence dissent. According to watchdogs, more than 65 reporters have been arrested, and at least 34 remain in custody.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has called for a fairer, more equitable global governance system. He spoke by video link to the annual Boao Forum for Asia on Tuesday. President Xi said no nation should dictate global rules or interfere with other countries' internal affairs.
经历了疫情洗礼，各国人民更加清晰地认识到，要摒弃冷战思维和零和博弈，反对任何形式的新冷战和意识形态对抗。
Although Xi did not identify any nation, Beijing has been unhappy with the United States over a range of issues, from accusations of human rights abuses to criticism of China's political influence on other countries.
Taiwan is seeking long-range cruise missiles from the United States. An unofficial U.S. delegation met with Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen last week and reaffirmed their close ties. Washington has been Taiwan's main foreign arms supplier for years, but the U.S. has not said whether it will sell the missiles to Taiwan. Taiwan is trying to bolster its military forces as it faces increasing pressure from Beijing to accept Beijing's sovereignty. Taiwan has been a self-governing island since 1949, but Beijing insists it's a renegade province that must reunite with mainland China.
U.S. President Joe Biden said on Saturday that he plans to raise the cap on the number of refugees allowed into the United States. Just a few days earlier, the president attracted criticism as he signed an order to continue a historically low 15,000 refugee admissions cap put in place by the Trump administration.
How was the first lady feeling? We were going to increase the number. We had to. The problem was that the refugee part was working on the crisis that ended up on the border with young people. We couldn't do two things at once for them. So now,
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said on Friday that plans for an increased refugee cap would be finalized by May 15th. Biden backtracked on the pledge after a golf session when reporters swarmed him asking for comment about the cap.
The United States has imposed sweeping sanctions on Russia over accusations that it engineered a hacking operation targeting American companies and government agencies. U.S. President Joe Biden's announcement says the sanctions are imposed on 32 entities for interfering in the 2020 American presidential election. 10 Russian diplomats that were stationed in the Russian embassy in Washington are also included. Most of them were identified as intelligence operative by the U.S. government. Additionally, under the sanctions, American banks have been banned from purchasing newly issued Russian government debt.
I was clear with President Putin that we could have gone further, but I chose not to do so. I chose to be proportionate. The United States is not looking to kick off a cycle of escalation and conflict with Russia. We want a stable, predictable relationship. If Russia continues to interfere with our democracy, I'm prepared to take further actions to respond. It is my responsibility as President of the United States to do so.
The actions taken by the Biden administration are in stark contrast with Biden's predecessor, Donald Trump, who was reluctant to criticize Moscow.
The United Kingdom is mourning the death of Prince Philip, who was royal consort to the Queen of England for over 6 decades. His funeral was held on Sunday at St. George's Chapel, with only 30 guests in attendance due to coronavirus restrictions. Erica Na has more on the life and times of Prince Philip, as well as his lasting legacy on Britain and the Commonwealth.
Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, passed away on April 9th at Windsor Castle. He was 99 years old. Prince Philip was born in 1921 in Greece and was originally a member of the Greek and Danish royal families. Once he got engaged to the British monarch George VI's eldest daughter Elizabeth in 1947, he relinquished his Greek and Danish titles and became a naturalized British subject. The couple got married the same year, and since then, Prince Philip had been Queen Elizabeth's husband for 73 years. The cause of the prince's death was not given. However, it had been known to the public that Philip had spent a month in hospital since February, undergoing treatment for an infection and recovering from a heart surgery. He had been released from the hospital on March 16th. After the prince's passing, his son Prince Andrew revealed that Queen Elizabeth described the death of her husband as leaving a huge void in her life. Other royal family members expressed sorrow over the death as well. In separate statements, Prince William and Prince Harry remembered their grandfather as an extraordinary man and a man of service, honor, and great humor. Prince Harry's comment was especially seen with intense media interest, as the prince and his wife, American actress Meghan Markle, had recently given a bombshell interview with American media mogul Oprah Winfrey. In the interview, they had revealed intimate details of their lives as royals. The British royal family had been a center of attention after the interview, as the couple alleged that a member of the royal family had made racist remarks regarding the couple's baby when Meghan Markle was pregnant. Additionally, the death unexpectedly brought in a historic moment in British television history. According to The Guardian, at least 110,000 people sent complaints to the BBC to object to its wall-to-wall coverage of Prince Philip's death. The Guardian reports that this is the most complained about moment in the history of British television.
India has set a global record with 315,000 new cases of COVID-19 in just one day. The capital, New Delhi, is in the fourth day of the week-long lockdown to try to stop the spread of the virus. The city's chief minister says the healthcare system is reaching its limits. Local media reports there are long queues at crematoriums as families bid farewell to victims of the pandemic. People also line up to buy food and alcohol ahead of the lockdown.
The cases are coming continuously, so maybe the lockdown will go a little further. So that's why we are here to purchase the liquor so that we can use it after this.
India will allow vaccinations for anyone and 18 or older starting May 1st.
Hong Kong is expanding its vaccination rollout to younger people. Permanent residents aged 16 to 29 will be eligible for the jabs and can make reservations starting today. The government has also announced that community vaccination centers for the BioNTech shots will only be in operation until late September. HKU journalism reporter Xi Tian Huang has more.
Thank you. I'm now standing here at one of the Hong Kong community vaccination centers, Sun Yat-sen Memorial Park Sports Center. The Hong Kong government announced the extension of the COVID-19 inoculation program to residents under 30 years old. People aged between 16 to 29 will be able to register for a jab from April 23rd onwards. The expansion opens the vaccination program up to 1.08 million more people. The entire vaccination program will soon cover around 88% of the Hong Kong's total population. Under the expanded program, people aged 16 or above will be able to receive the German-made biotech doses, while those older than 18 could opt for the mainland China-produced Sinovac vaccine. Currently, only those aged 30 and above are able to receive a jab under the scheme, although young people also can if they belong to groups such as healthcare workers, teachers, as well as restaurant staff. Those who are delaying their jabs but are looking into biotech as an option must get their vaccine as soon as possible because the government will seize the biotech vaccine in Hong Kong by the end of September. Civil Service Chief Patrick Quinn explained that because biotech vaccine could only be kept for 3 to 4 months under the required storage temperature of -70 degrees and at most 5 days after thawing. That is to say, those who opt for a Pfizer jab will need to get their first jab by the end of August. Back to you in the
A hoped-for travel bubble between Hong Kong and Singapore has been delayed again. An announcement was expected this week, but Singapore has detected an outbreak of COVID-19 among migrant workers there. A specific launch date was never revealed. Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam has said that Hong Kong residents might need to get vaccinated before travel. Officials think this can protect travelers and encourage people to get vaccinated sooner. This would be the second time Hong Kong and Singapore have tried such a plan. Last November, a travel bubble was scrapped when a fourth wave of coronavirus infections hit Hong Kong. The previous plan would have allowed up to 200 travelers to board a plane in each direction on a daily basis.
Japan has announced plans to release contaminated water into the sea from the crippled Fukushima nuclear power plant. Countries nearby and all around the Pacific Rim are opposed to the plans. My anchoring partner Deng Shui has more.
Thank you. The decision by Japanese government to release the contaminated water into the sea has been strongly criticized by international public opinion, and Japan's neighboring countries have also expressed concerns over this decision. Japanese media analysis said that the reason of discharging the nuclear water may be that the nuclear power plant's storage tanks are about to reach the maximum capacity. In 2011, the earthquake in eastern Japan triggered a huge tsunami and a nuclear disaster at Fukushima. More than 10 years after the nuclear accident, the problem of nuclear sewage disposal remains unresolved. The radioactive material has contaminated everything around Fukushima, not only vegetation, soil, objects, even fine dust and air. Large amounts of radioactive material have been detected in the contaminated nuclear water. Previous reports have revealed that even Japanese government claims the water has been filtered. It still contains tritium, carbon-14, cobalt-60, and other radioactive substances, which are difficult to completely remove. And all of them are really horrible to human's body. A German marine agency calculated that within 57 days from the date of discharge, radioactive material would have spread over most of the Pacific Ocean. And 3 years later, the United States and Canada would have been affected by nuclear contamination. The release of nuclear sewage into the ocean will affect global fish migration, pelagic fishing, human health, and ecological security and other aspects. Therefore, this issue is not only a domestic issue, but an international issue. As early as last October, Greenpeace International warned that contaminated water released into the sea by Fukushima contained radioactive materials that could damage humans' DNA. According to CNN, in an effort to cool the fuel course at the damaged Fukushima nuclear plant, Tokyo Electric Power Company has pumped into tens of thousands of tons of water over the years. But with storage space running out, what to do with the contaminated water has become a thorny problem for the Japanese government. Meanwhile, the US shows support for its allies' decision and is looking forward to the Japanese government's continued coordination. Back to you.
The Tokyo Olympics is due to start in less than 100 days, but Japan is still struggling to manage the coronavirus outbreak. The Japanese government says it will soon issue state of emergency orders for Tokyo, Osaka, and Hyogo. Those places have asked the central government to impose a state of emergency as infections rise. Tokyo Metropolis held a brief celebration for the 100-day countdown to the Games. The statues of the mascots of the Olympic and Paralympic Games were officially unveiled. Yuriko Koike, the governor of Tokyo Metropolis, said that she will continue to make preparations for the remaining 100 days.
China's National Bureau of Statistics announced on April 12th that the country's GDP had risen 18.3% in the first quarter of this year, compared with the same period last year. It was the highest quarterly growth rate recorded since data first began being published in 1993. China is the only major economy in the world to see GDP growth in 2020. It's a sign of robust rebound in the world's second largest economy after the coronavirus pandemic. Many Chinese companies also reported strong earnings growth in the first quarter. Some Chinese economists believe that China's rapid economic recovery is due to normal production and consumption, and does not rely on large-scale monetary or fiscal incentives. This type of growth is healthier and more sustainable.
Hong Kong's Octopus Card Company says it plans to launch a new transit card in mainland China. The new cashless payment card would work in around 300 major cities on the mainland. Simon Zhang has more on this story. Simon?
Okay, thank you. The company of the Hong Kong Octopus Card is planning to enter into the Chinese market in the following future. It has cooperated with the Beijing government-funded organization called T-Union. In this union, there is a nationwide one-card payment systems. So after cooperating with these systems, it will make this new transmitted card become more acceptable for Chinese customers. Besides that, it's also tried to cooperate with other 11 foreign countries, like South Korea and Singapore. It will make the Hong Kong resident become more convenient when they are going abroad. The dominant currency in this new transmitted card will still be Hong Kong dollars, but other currencies like RMB will also be considered. So the Hong Kong Octopus Card is the most popular payment system in Hong Kong. It was founded in 1997, and it is widely acceptable by Hong Kong residents. Even every Hong Kong resident nearly have like more than one Octopus card. You only need to use this card with a simple tap. You can use it everywhere, like public transportation system, 7-Eleven, or even the vending machines. So until now, the Hong Kong Octopus card has like more than 36 million users. But although the Hong Kong Octopus card has like the competitive advantage in Hong Kong, but it's the mainland market is still dominated by WeChat Pay and Alipay. Without using a physical card, you only need to use a QR code through this application. You can have like exactly same functions. So it is very hard for the new transmitted card to enter into this kind of market. The future of the new transmitted card is very unpredictable. So back to you in the studio.
It sounds very exciting that we may be able to use Octopus card when traveling outside of Hong Kong. Thomas, would you like to try it out?
Yeah, for sure. It sounds very convenient and it will save a lot of time for us.
And that's the end of the GMC Weekly News Roundup.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.